I discovered my CEO, Bradley Hartwell, just approved $30 million for his incompetent son Derek's revolutionary AI chatbot project, while simultaneously rejecting my $15,000 proposal for employee productivity software I developed during lunch breaks. Standing outside the boardroom after being humiliated and called just an assistant by Derek, I overhear Bradley telling investors this will be the company's flagship product. My hands shake as I clutch my rejected proposal, watching Derek celebrate with champagne, while knowing his project will destroy everything I've worked to build. My name is Augusta, and I've spent 3 years as the executive assistant to Bradley Hartwell, founder and CEO of Pinnacle Tech Solutions. What I witnessed today wasn't just corporate favoritism. It was the systematic destruction of everything our company once stood for. Derek Hartwell arrived at our Silicon Valley headquarters 18 months ago, fresh from his latest failure. At 28 years old, he'd already burned through 2 startup ventures. His cryptocurrency exchange collapsed when he miscalculated market volatility, losing investor funds totaling $4.7 million. His social media platform never attracted more than 300 users before shutting down quietly. Most people would hesitate to hire someone with Derek's track record. Bradley created a new position specifically for his son, Innovation Director. No interview process, no performance metrics, no accountability to anyone except Daddy. I watched Derek's ascension with growing unease. Unlike other executives who earned their positions through years of dedication, Derek waltzed into the corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the San Francisco Bay. His first week, he redecorated with expensive furniture charged to the company account, including a $7,000 ergonomic desk chair and a custom-built standing workstation. Derek's pattern became clear within his first month. He would attend project meetings, listen to presentations from our talented staff, then claim their ideas as his own breakthrough insights. When marketing analyst Sarah Chen developed a customer retention strategy that increased client satisfaction by 18%, Derek presented it to the board as his conceptual framework for understanding consumer psychology. Sarah's original proposal sat buried in departmental files, while Derek received company-wide recognition for strategic thinking. I watched her face during the presentation, the way her jaw tightened when Derek explained her methodology without crediting her research. She submitted a formal complaint to Human Resources, but Bradley dismissed it as interdepartmental jealousy. The theft continued with software developer Marcus Johnson's automated testing protocol. Marcus spent 6 months developing code that identified bugs before they reached production, saving Pinnacle Tech approximately $200,000 annually in quality assurance costs. Derek somehow obtained Marcus's technical documentation and presented the innovation as his own systematic approach to software optimization. When Marcus confronted Derek privately demanding acknowledgement for his work, Derek threatened to have him fired for insubordination. Marcus backed down, knowing Bradley would never believe his accusations against the Golden Boy. The testing protocol became another feather in Derek's cap, another example of his natural business instincts. I began documenting these incidents in my personal notebook, recording dates, witnesses, and original documentation. Something about Derek's behavior felt dangerous, predatory even. He wasn't just stealing credit. He was destroying the motivation of our most talented employees. The pattern escalated when Derek discovered my productivity software proposal. I'd been working on the concept during my lunch hours for 8 months, designing a platform that could streamline task management across departments while integrating with existing business applications. My background in psychology, my college major before switching to business administration, helped me understand how people actually work rather than how they're supposed to work. My $15,000 budget request was modest compared to other technology investments. The funds would cover cloud hosting services, development tools, and basic integration modules. I'd already created preliminary wireframes and conducted informal testing with colleagues who confirmed the software would significantly improve their daily efficiency. During my presentation to the executive team, Derek interrupted, repeatedly questioning my technical qualifications and suggesting the project exceeded my capabilities as an administrative assistant. He emphasized that innovation should remain within his department, implying my proposal represented overreach beyond my assigned responsibilities. Bradley nodded along with his son's objections, barely glancing at my detailed documentation. When I explained the potential return on investment, Derek laughed openly, stating that assistants don't understand business metrics. The room fell silent except for Derek's continued chuckling. The meeting ended with my proposal rejected, and Derek's $30 million AI chatbot approved unanimously. As I gathered my materials, Derek leaned back in his chair and delivered his final insult.
"You're just an assistant, Augusta. Stay in your lane."
But here's what Derek didn't know. 2 weeks before my official presentation, I'd noticed him accessing my computer while I attended a client meeting. He'd photographed my preliminary sketches and saved copies of my research files to a private folder labeled Project Archives. I discovered this accidentally when he forgot to log out of his workstation while rushing to his daily 2-hour lunch at the country club. That's when I found his collection. Emails from Sarah Chen outlining her retention strategy, Marcus Johnson's original code documentation, design concepts from graphic designer Amy Rodriguez, technical specifications from database administrator Paul Williams. Derek had been systematically stealing intellectual property from employees across multiple departments, building his reputation on our collective creativity. The most shocking discovery was my own productivity software concept, dated 2 weeks before I'd submitted my official proposal. Derek had already begun positioning my idea as part of his grand AI vision planning to present my work as his innovation once again. I faced an impossible choice. Exposing Derek's theft would require admitting I'd accessed his computer without permission, potentially ending my career at Pinnacle Tech. But staying silent meant watching him destroy more talented people while taking credit for their contributions. I decided to document everything methodically, using my personal phone to photograph Derek's stolen files during his extended lunch meetings. If Derek wanted to play games, I would make sure I had evidence of every move. Standing in that boardroom today, watching Derek celebrate his $30 million approval while my legitimate proposal lay rejected, I realized something important. Derek hadn't just stolen my idea. He'd made a critical error that would expose his true nature to everyone who mattered. The signs started small, almost imperceptible, unless you knew where to look. I'd been managing Bradley's calendar and expense reports for 3 years, which gave me unusual insight into Pinnacle Tech's financial operations. The coffee service switched from premium brands to generic alternatives. The cleaning crew reduced their schedule from daily to 3 times per week. Several senior developers left quietly without replacement announcements or farewell gatherings. These details might seem insignificant to most employees, but I understood their implications. Companies don't cut basic services unless cash flow becomes problematic. Bradley had been scheduling increasingly frequent meetings with financial advisors and potential investors, conversations that stretched well beyond normal business planning sessions. My concerns deepened when I processed expense reports for client entertainment. Bradley's usual pattern involved expensive dinners at 5-star restaurants, private box seats at Giants games, and weekend retreats at luxury resorts. These investments in client relationships had always generated substantial returns. Recently, however, the entertainment budget had decreased dramatically, while client satisfaction surveys showed declining scores across multiple accounts. I began investigating more carefully, cross-referencing client contracts with financial projections in Bradley's private files. The picture that emerged was catastrophic. Pinnacle Tech had lost their second-largest client, Meridian Industries, 6 months earlier due to repeated software failures directly caused by Derek's previous innovation projects. Meridian's departure wasn't announced publicly to avoid damaging company morale, but the revenue impact was devastating. Their annual contract worth $3.4 million represented 12% of Pinnacle Tech's total income. Worse, Meridian's departure influenced other clients to reconsider their partnerships with our company. Our biggest remaining client, Galactic Enterprises, had been expressing growing dissatisfaction with recent service quality. Their quarterly reviews, which I scheduled and prepared materials for, revealed concerning trends. Response times had increased by 40%. Customer support tickets remained unresolved longer than contractually acceptable timeframes. Most damaging, the innovative solutions that originally attracted Galactic to our services were no longer being delivered consistently. I discovered the root cause when reviewing project timelines and resource allocation reports. Derek's innovation initiatives had diverted our most experienced developers away from client work toward his experimental projects. These developers, who previously focused on solving specific client problems, now spent their time building Derek's vision of revolutionary technology that rarely functioned as promised. The financial records painted an even bleaker picture. Pinnacle Tech's cash reserves had dropped from $15 million to $4.2 million over 18 months. This decline coincided perfectly with Derek's arrival and his expensive innovation projects. The company was burning through approximately $600,000 monthly while generating insufficient revenue to sustain operations long-term. Bradley had been frantically seeking new investors using Derek's AI chatbot project as the centerpiece of his funding presentations. I'd prepared multiple versions of investor pitch decks, each promising revolutionary artificial intelligence solutions that would transform business communication forever. The $30 million investment wasn't just for development costs. It represented a desperate attempt to keep Pinnacle Tech operational for the next 2 years while Derek built his chatbot platform. The pressure intensified when I discovered correspondence between Bradley and lead investor Theodore Blackstone. Blackstone's investment firm specialized in technology startups, but they demanded aggressive performance milestones that Derek's track record suggested he couldn't meet. Their funding agreement included clauses requiring substantial progress demonstrations within 90 days of initial investment. If Derek's AI project failed to meet these benchmarks, Pinnacle Tech would face immediate bankruptcy proceedings. Bradley had personally guaranteed the investment by mortgaging his family assets as collateral, including his $7 million estate in Palo Alto and his investment portfolio. Failure wouldn't just destroy the company. It would eliminate Bradley's personal wealth accumulated over 20 years of entrepreneurship. I felt sick thinking about our 230 employees who had no idea their jobs depended on Derek's competence. These weren't just statistics. They were people with families, mortgages, and career aspirations. Sarah Chen was planning her daughter's college education. Marcus Johnson had recently bought his first home. Amy Rodriguez supported her elderly parents while pursuing her master's degree in graphic design. The situation became more desperate when I overheard a heated telephone conversation between Bradley and Theodore Blackstone. Bradley's office door was slightly ajar during what he assumed was a private discussion. Blackstone's voice carried clearly through the speakerphone as he questioned Derek's qualifications and demanded detailed technical specifications for the AI project. Bradley scrambled to provide answers he didn't understand, relying on Derek's technical explanations that sounded impressive but lacked substance. Blackstone's frustration was evident as he pointed out inconsistencies in the project timeline and questioned whether Derek possessed the expertise necessary to deliver promised functionality. The conversation concluded with Blackstone's ultimatum: demonstrate significant progress within 90 days or face complete withdrawal of funding. No extensions, no excuses, no second chances. After ending the call, Bradley sat in stunned silence for several minutes. I could see him through the partially open door, his head buried in his hands as the weight of potential failure pressed down on him. For the first time since Derek's arrival, Bradley seemed to realize the magnitude of risk he'd accepted by betting everything on his son's abilities. That evening, I stayed late to process additional investor correspondence that revealed even more troubling information. Derek had been making technical promises to potential funders without consulting our development team about feasibility. He'd committed to artificial intelligence capabilities that would require expertise and resources far beyond Pinnacle Tech's current capacity. Most shocking of all, Derek had no direct AI development experience. His previous ventures had failed precisely because he'd overpromised technological capabilities he couldn't deliver. The chatbot project was following the same pattern: grand promises, enormous budgets, and fundamental misunderstanding of technical requirements. I realized Derek was planning to rely entirely on outsourced developers from overseas platforms to build the AI system while taking full credit for the results. He'd already begun posting project requirements on freelancer websites, seeking artificial intelligence specialists willing to work for significantly less than American developers would charge. This revelation crystallized my understanding of the entire situation. Derek wasn't an innovator. He was a fraud who'd convinced his father to risk everything on another doomed venture. Unless something changed dramatically, Pinnacle Tech would collapse within months, destroying hundreds of careers and Bradley's life savings. Sitting alone in my small studio apartment that night, I made a decision that would change everything. If Derek could steal my productivity software concept and present it as part of his AI breakthrough, I could build it myself and prove its real value before his project had time to fail spectacularly. I transformed my 500-square-foot studio apartment into a technology development center using creative solutions born from financial necessity. My dining table became a dual-monitor workstation. The kitchen counter housed testing devices and backup storage systems. Even my living room coffee table served as a prototype assembly area where I could spread design documents and user interface mock-ups across its surface. Working from midnight to 4 a.m. became my new routine. After completing my full-time assistant duties at Pinnacle Tech, I would return home, grab a quick dinner, and dive into software development until exhaustion forced me to sleep. Coffee became my constant companion as I taught myself advanced programming concepts through online tutorials and developer forums. My original productivity software concept seemed modest compared to Derek's $30 million AI project. But I understood something he didn't: elegant solutions often emerge from constraints rather than unlimited resources. My $15,000 budget forced creative thinking that resulted in more practical approaches than his brute force methodology. Instead of building complex artificial intelligence from scratch, I focused on creating smart connections between existing business platforms. My psychology background helped me understand how people actually interact with technology versus how engineers assume they should interact. I designed interfaces that felt intuitive, rather than technically impressive, prioritizing user experience over flashy features that served no practical purpose. The core concept involved streamlining employee task management by integrating calendar systems, communication tools, and project tracking applications into a unified platform. Rather than forcing users to switch between multiple programs throughout their workday, My software would provide centralized access to everything they needed while learning from their usage patterns to suggest efficiency improvements. I purchased cloud hosting services from a startup company that offered competitive rates for small-scale development projects. The basic infrastructure cost only $400 monthly, leaving most of my budget available for development tools and integration modules. I chose open-source programming frameworks that provided robust functionality without expensive licensing fees. The breakthrough came when I discovered an online community of developers who shared resources and expertise for artificial intelligence integration projects. Unlike Derek's approach of hiring expensive consultants, I contributed to open-source initiatives in exchange for access to advanced language processing capabilities that would have cost thousands of dollars through commercial vendors. My productivity platform began evolving beyond simple task management as I integrated these AI modules. The software could analyze communication patterns to identify potential workflow bottlenecks before they impacted productivity. It learned from user behavior to suggest optimal scheduling arrangements and resource allocation strategies. Most importantly, it enhanced human capabilities rather than attempting to replace human judgment. Testing my software with Pinnacle Tech's internal operations revealed remarkable potential. I created a simulation environment using anonymized data from our project management systems, careful to avoid violating any confidentiality agreements or accessing information beyond my authorized permissions. The results exceeded my expectations by significant margins. My platform identified efficiency improvements that could reduce average project completion time by 30%, while decreasing resource conflicts by 45%. It predicted workflow bottlenecks up to 2 weeks in advance, giving managers time to adjust assignments and prevent delays. Most impressive, the AI integration provided practical business intelligence that helped users make better decisions rather than simply automating routine tasks. I realized my software addressed problems that Derek's expensive chatbot completely ignored. His project focused on conversational abilities that looked impressive during demonstrations but provided limited practical value for daily business operations. My platform solved real challenges that companies like Galactic Enterprises had been requesting for months: integrated intelligence that enhanced productivity rather than creating additional complexity. The more I developed my software, the more I understood why Derek's approach was fundamentally flawed. He was building technology for technology's sake, pursuing artificial intelligence capabilities that sounded revolutionary but didn't address specific business needs. My background in psychology helped me recognize this pattern as a common mistake among inexperienced innovators who prioritize impressive features over practical functionality. Working within budget constraints had forced me to focus on essential capabilities rather than pursuing every possible feature. This limitation resulted in cleaner, more efficient code that performed better than Derek's bloated system would when his overseas developers finished building it. My software launched quickly, responded instantly to user commands, and integrated seamlessly with existing business applications. The psychological satisfaction of creating something valuable with my own hands was incredible. Each successful test confirmed that my approach was not only viable, but superior to Derek's expensive alternative. I wasn't just building software. I was proving that innovation comes from understanding real problems and developing practical solutions rather than throwing money at impressive-sounding concepts. My late-night development sessions became increasingly productive as my confidence grew. I expanded the platform's capabilities to include predictive analytics that could forecast resource needs based on historical project data. The AI integration evolved to provide personalized productivity coaching for individual users while maintaining their privacy and autonomy. By the end of my 8th week of development, I had created a comprehensive business intelligence platform that delivered everything Derek had promised investors, plus additional functionality he hadn't even considered. My $15,000 investment had produced a software solution that could genuinely transform how companies manage their operations and optimize employee productivity. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Derek struggled to build a chatbot that could answer basic business questions, I had developed an AI-powered platform that could analyze complex organizational patterns, predict future challenges, and suggest specific improvements based on real data analysis. His $30 million project couldn't match what I'd accomplished in my studio apartment using creative problem-solving and determination. Testing my software on larger datasets revealed its potential impact on Pinnacle Tech's operations. If implemented company-wide, my platform could improve overall efficiency by 40% while reducing operational costs by approximately $60,000 monthly. These weren't theoretical projections. They were concrete calculations based on actual performance measurements from my testing environment. As I prepared for sleep each morning at 4 a.m. exhausted but exhilarated by my progress, I began planning how to reveal my software's capabilities when the time was right. Derek's AI project was approaching its first major milestone review with investors, and I suspected his lack of substantial progress would create opportunities for alternative solutions. I had built something remarkable from almost nothing, and soon everyone would understand the difference between authentic innovation and expensive pretense. Derek's paranoia manifested subtly at first, like a predator testing the boundaries of his territory. He began appearing near my desk during lunch breaks, ostensibly discussing project timelines with other team members while obviously listening to my conversations. His casual questions about my weekend activities felt invasive rather than friendly, probing for information about how I spent my personal time. The surveillance escalated when Derek befriended Tony Martinez, our night security guard who patrolled the building during evening hours. Tony, a 62-year-old veteran supporting his disabled wife on a modest salary, became vulnerable to Derek's manipulation when Derek learned about his financial struggles. A few strategically placed compliments about Tony's dedication, combined with subtle hints about possible bonus opportunities, created the perfect recruitment opportunity. Derek convinced Tony that monitoring after-hours building access was crucial for corporate security. He explained that intellectual property theft was a growing concern in Silicon Valley, particularly among companies developing artificial intelligence technologies. Tony began documenting unusual employee activity, including photographs of cars in the parking lot after 6 p.m. and visitor logs for apartment buildings near Pinnacle Tech headquarters. My late-night development sessions didn't escape Derek's attention. Tony reported that my lights stayed on until 4 a.m. most weeknights, and Derek interpreted this pattern as evidence of suspicious behavior. He assumed I was either working on competing projects to sell to rival companies or gathering confidential information to use against Pinnacle Tech in future employment opportunities. Derek's investigation expanded when he noticed my interactions with Jamie Patterson, a junior developer who'd been answering technical questions during our lunch conversations. Jamie, a 25-year-old recent graduate from UC Berkeley, enjoyed discussing programming concepts and had offered advice about software architecture challenges I mentioned in general terms. Our innocent conversations about coding best practices and user interface design became sinister in Derek's paranoid interpretation. He convinced himself that Jamie and I were collaborating on a competing product that would undermine his AI chatbot project. Derek began monitoring Jamie's work assignments, questioning his productivity, and creating unnecessary obstacles for his current projects. The manipulation campaign intensified when Derek approached Bradley with concerns about my recent performance and loyalty to the company. He constructed a narrative suggesting that my behavior had become erratic and unprofessional since my proposal was rejected. Derek implied that I was pursuing personal projects during company time and potentially sharing confidential information with unauthorized individuals. Bradley, already stressed about investor pressures and company finances, was receptive to Derek's concerns about potential security breaches. Derek suggested implementing stricter monitoring of employee computer usage and conducting surprise desk inspections to identify unauthorized materials or activities that might compromise company interests. Derek's most aggressive move involved planting evidence to support his accusations. He purchased several software development books from Amazon and discreetly placed them in my desk drawer during lunch break. Later that week, during a team meeting about project security protocols, Derek volunteered to help search for potential policy violations among administrative staff. His discovery of the programming book seemed accidental, but his theatrical shock was clearly rehearsed. Derek expressed concern that administrative employees might be pursuing unauthorized technical training that could enable corporate espionage or intellectual property theft. He suggested that such behavior indicated divided loyalty and potential security risks. The humiliation of having my desk searched in front of colleagues while Derek implied I was engaging in suspicious activities was devastating. Sarah Chen and Marcus Johnson exchanged uncomfortable glances, recognizing Derek's manipulation, but unable to intervene without risking their own positions. Amy Rodriguez shook her head in disgust, but remained silent to protect her job security. Derek's rumor campaign expanded beyond direct accusations to subtle insinuations about my motivations and character. He suggested to various team members that I might be interviewing with competing companies using my access to Bradley's calendar and correspondence to gather valuable intelligence for potential employers. These accusations gained credibility because my position did provide access to sensitive business information. The psychological pressure of constant scrutiny and implied accusations was exhausting. I maintained my professional demeanor while internally seething at Derek's manipulative tactics. Every conversation became a potential trap, every action subject to misinterpretation and distortion through Derek's paranoid lens. Derek's technological surveillance reached new depths when he installed monitoring software on my work computer during lunch break. Using his administrative access as innovation director, he justified the intrusion as routine security measures required for protecting company intellectual property. The software tracked keystrokes, captured screenshots, and recorded file access patterns without my knowledge or consent. Through this monitoring system, Derek discovered file names related to my productivity software development, including design documents I'd briefly accessed to reference technical specifications. He interpreted these fragments as evidence that I was building a competing product to sell to rival companies, completely missing the irony that he'd stolen the same concept weeks earlier. Derek prepared a comprehensive presentation documenting what he characterized as my corporate espionage activities. He compiled screenshots, keystroke logs, and file access records into a narrative suggesting I was systematically stealing proprietary information to use against Pinnacle Tech's interests. His plan was to present this evidence during an impromptu all-hands meeting, publicly exposing my supposed betrayal. The moment of truth arrived on a Thursday morning when Derek scheduled an emergency company meeting, supposedly to address security concerns that required immediate attention. He'd prepared his presentation carefully, anticipating the satisfaction of watching me condemned and terminated in front of our entire staff. However, Derek's monitoring software had captured more than he anticipated. The screen recordings included detailed footage of my software development work showing the sophisticated AI integration solutions I'd created during my personal time using my own resources. When Derek presented his evidence expecting to see me humiliated, the opposite reaction occurred. Senior developers immediately recognized the elegance and innovation in my code architecture. Carol Williams, our engineering manager, openly praised the creative approaches I'd used to solve complex integration challenges. Database administrator Paul Williams whispered admiringly about my efficient data optimization techniques. Most damaging to Derek's position, his presentation inadvertently revealed that he'd been conducting unauthorized surveillance of employee computer activities without proper authorization or legal justification. The monitoring software installation violated company privacy policies and potentially broke California labor laws regarding employee surveillance. Derek's attempt at public humiliation backfired spectacularly as team members realized he'd been spying on colleagues while I'd been creating genuinely innovative solutions during my personal time. His credibility evaporated as employees understood the true nature of his accusations and the unethical methods he'd used to gather supposed evidence. The meeting ended with Derek facing serious questions about his surveillance activities, while I received unexpected recognition for the technical sophistication of my productivity platform. His sabotage campaign had exposed his own incompetence and paranoia, while accidentally highlighting my capabilities and integrity. Word about my productivity platform spread through Pinnacle Tech's technical teams like wildfire, despite Derek's desperate attempts to suppress discussion. Carol Williams privately approached me after the disastrous surveillance meeting, expressing genuine amazement at the software capabilities she'd witnessed during Derek's failed presentation. Her 20-year career in engineering management had given her exceptional ability to recognize innovative solutions, and my platform had impressed her beyond typical corporate courtesy. Carol suggested that I demonstrate my software directly to Bradley, bypassing Derek's gatekeeping role entirely. However, I hesitated to pursue this recommendation, knowing Derek would sabotage any official presentation through his influence over his father. My position as executive assistant provided insight into family dynamics that made direct confrontation seem professionally dangerous. The situation reached a critical turning point when Helena Morrison, CEO of Galactic Enterprises, arrived for their quarterly review meeting. Helena had built her telecommunications company from a small regional provider into a national corporation worth $800 million through relentless focus on operational efficiency and customer satisfaction. Her reputation for demanding practical results rather than impressive presentations made her the perfect judge of genuine versus superficial innovation. Helena's frustration with Pinnacle Tech's declining service quality had been building for months. Previous quarterly reviews had featured Derek's promises about revolutionary improvements that never materialized into tangible benefits for Galactic's operations. Response times continued increasing, while solution quality decreased, creating serious concerns about maintaining their partnership long-term. During Derek's presentation of his AI chatbot project, Helena remained visibly unimpressed, despite his emphasis on the $30 million development budget and cutting-edge artificial intelligence technology. Derek demonstrated conversational features that sounded sophisticated, but provided minimal practical value for business applications. His chatbot could engage in small talk and answer basic questions, but it couldn't analyze complex business data or provide strategic insights that Helena's company actually needed. Helena's patience wore thin as Derek explained theoretical capabilities that would supposedly be available in future software updates. She interrupted his presentation to ask specific questions about current functionality and practical applications for Galactic's telecommunications infrastructure. Derek's responses revealed his fundamental misunderstanding of both artificial intelligence technology and real-world business requirements. The tension in the conference room was palpable as Helena's assistant Michael Chen quietly mentioned he'd heard about an innovative productivity platform being developed at Pinnacle Tech. When Derek dismissively characterized my software as minor internal tools not suitable for client consideration, Helena's curiosity was piqued rather than satisfied. Helena had built her business success by identifying practical solutions that competitors overlooked or undervalued. Derek's casual dismissal of alternative innovations suggested either ignorance or deliberate concealment of potentially valuable technologies. She privately approached Carol Williams during the lunch break, inquiring about the productivity platform that Derek seemed eager to minimize. Carol's description of my software's capabilities sparked Helena's immediate interest. Unlike Derek's chatbot that focused on conversational abilities, my platform addressed specific operational challenges that Helena had been seeking solutions for over the past year. Workflow optimization, predictive analytics, and intelligent resource allocation were exactly the types of practical innovations that could provide competitive advantages for galactic enterprises. Helena demanded an immediate demonstration of my productivity platform, despite Derek's increasingly frantic protests that the software was unfinished and inappropriate for client presentations. She explained that galactic enterprises needed practical solutions rather than expensive technology showcases, and she was tired of being presented with theoretical capabilities that never delivered real-world benefits. Bradley found himself caught between his son's objections and his biggest client's explicit demands. Helena's contract represented over 40% of Pinnacle Tech's remaining revenue, and losing Galactic Enterprises would trigger immediate bankruptcy proceedings. He had no choice but to authorize my impromptu demonstration, despite Derek's visible anger and opposition. My presentation began nervously, acutely aware that Derek was documenting every word for future retaliation. However, once I started explaining my software's capabilities and demonstrating its practical applications, my confidence grew exponentially. This was my creation built through months of dedicated effort and genuine understanding of business needs. The productivity platform seamlessly integrated with Galactic's existing systems during the live demonstration, analyzing their workflow patterns in real time and identifying specific improvement opportunities. Within minutes, Helena could see how my software would address every operational concern she'd raised about efficiency optimization and resource management. My platform didn't just manage tasks. It predicted bottlenecks before they occurred, suggested optimal resource allocation based on historical performance data, and provided actionable insights that could improve productivity immediately rather than requiring months of additional development. The contrast with Derek's theoretical chatbot capabilities was stark and undeniable. Helena's questions became increasingly detailed and technical as she realized the sophistication of what I'd accomplished with minimal resources. She wanted to understand integration requirements, scalability potential, and implementation timelines for deploying my platform across Galactic's operations nationwide. The most shocking moment came when Helena requested a private meeting with me to discuss potential consulting arrangements independent of Pinnacle Tech's existing service contract. She explained that my productivity platform delivered more practical value than Derek's $30 million AI project, and she was prepared to negotiate directly for access to my innovations. Derek's face turned ashen as he realized Helena was offering me a consulting contract potentially worth millions of dollars annually, completely bypassing his role as innovation director and undermining his entire AI project. Bradley looked stunned as his biggest client expressed more enthusiasm for his assistant's $15,000 creation than his son's expensive technological showcase. Helena concluded the meeting by stating that Galactic Enterprises would delay any decisions about renewing their contract with Pinnacle Tech until they could evaluate my productivity platform more thoroughly. She made it clear that practical innovation like mine was exactly what her company needed, not expensive artificial intelligence experiments that promised everything and delivered nothing. As Helena and her team departed, Derek's carefully constructed reputation lay in ruins, while my software had proven its value to the most important judge possible, a successful business leader who understood the difference between genuine innovation and expensive pretense. Derek's desperation transformed from calculated paranoia into reckless panic as Helena Morrison's endorsement of my productivity platform threatened everything he'd built through deception and manipulation. His position as innovation director had always depended on Bradley's paternal blindness rather than genuine competence, but Helena's professional assessment exposed the vast gap between Derek's reputation and his actual capabilities. The pressure intensified exponentially when investor Theodore Blackstone demanded accelerated progress demonstrations for Derek's AI chatbot project. Blackstone's investment firm had committed $30 million based on Derek's promises of revolutionary artificial intelligence capabilities, but recent technical reviews had raised serious concerns about feasibility and timeline accuracy. Derek's response to this mounting pressure involved making increasingly dangerous decisions that would ultimately expose his fundamental incompetence to everyone who mattered. He began hiring additional developers using company emergency funds without Bradley's authorization, desperate to produce impressive demonstrations that could salvage his reputation and maintain investor confidence. These unauthorized expenditures totaled over $400,000 within 3 weeks, draining Pinnacle Tech's already depleted cash reserves while producing minimal improvement in his chatbot's functionality. The overseas developers Derek had contracted were skilled, but couldn't overcome the fundamental flaws in his project architecture and specifications. Meanwhile, I continued refining my productivity platform during evening hours, adding features and optimizations based on feedback from Helena's preliminary testing with Galactic Enterprises. My software evolved rapidly because its foundation was solid practical solutions for real business problems rather than impressive technology for its own sake. Helena had quietly begun testing my platform with Galactic's operations team, and the results exceeded her expectations dramatically. Productivity increased by 35% within 2 weeks of initial implementation. Error rates in customer service interactions decreased by 60%. Most importantly, employee satisfaction improved as my software eliminated frustrating inefficiencies that had plagued their workflows for years. Helena started recommending my productivity platform to other business leaders in her professional network, describing it as the most practical AI integration solution she'd encountered. These referrals created potential opportunities worth millions of dollars annually, completely independent of Pinnacle Tech's existing client relationships. Derek's awareness of these developments through his continued surveillance efforts drove him to increasingly irrational behavior. He attempted to claim credit for my software's success by suggesting it had been built using concepts from his AI chatbot project, but technical documentation clearly proved the independent development timeline and distinct architectural approaches. The crisis reached its peak when Theodore Blackstone scheduled a formal demonstration of Derek's AI chatbot for potential additional funding rounds. Blackstone had invited representatives from 4 other investment firms, creating an opportunity for Derek to secure another $20 million if his project could prove its revolutionary capabilities. Derek spent sleepless nights attempting to enhance his chatbot's performance for this critical demonstration, but his lack of technical expertise became increasingly apparent. He couldn't understand the complex algorithms his overseas contractors had implemented, making it impossible to troubleshoot problems or optimize functionality effectively. His desperation led Derek to attempt incorporating elements of my productivity platform into his chatbot demonstration, hoping to impress investors with capabilities he couldn't explain or replicate. This decision would prove catastrophically misguided, as it created conflicts between different software architectures that neither Derek nor his contracted developers could resolve. The demonstration day arrived with Derek's confidence artificially inflated by stimulants and sheer desperation. Theodore Blackstone and his invited investors gathered in Pinnacle Tech's main conference room, expecting to see the revolutionary artificial intelligence technology that justified $30 million in development investment. Derek's presentation began confidently as he explained his chatbot's theoretical capabilities and the sophisticated algorithms supposedly powering its artificial intelligence functions. However, when the time came for live demonstrations, everything began falling apart in spectacular fashion. The chatbot provided inappropriate responses to professional business queries, suggesting casual conversation topics when asked about financial projections. It crashed repeatedly during stress testing, requiring multiple restarts that Derek couldn't explain to increasingly skeptical investors. Most embarrassing, the AI revealed its dependence on basic template responses rather than genuine artificial intelligence when it repeated identical phrases for different questions. Blackstone's questions became increasingly pointed as Derek's technical explanations contradicted observable reality. Senior developers in attendance, including Carol Williams, began correcting Derek's misstatements about artificial intelligence functionality and software architecture principles. The final catastrophe occurred when Derek attempted to demonstrate advanced features he'd promised, but never actually implemented. The chatbot completely malfunctioned, displaying error messages and technical diagnostics that proved its amateur construction and Derek's fundamental misunderstanding of the technology he'd supposedly created. Blackstone publicly questioned Derek's competence, demanding explanations for the massive discrepancies between promised capabilities and actual functionality. Derek's attempts to blame technical difficulties and suggest that temporary problems didn't represent the system's true potential only made the situation worse, as technical experts in the room contradicted his explanations. The meeting concluded with Blackstone's ultimatum: provide a viable alternative technology solution within 48 hours or face complete withdrawal of all investment funding. No extensions would be granted. No excuses would be accepted. Pinnacle Tech had 2 days to prove they possessed genuine innovation worth $30 million. As investors departed in obvious disappointment, Derek's empire of deception finally collapsed under the weight of reality. His $30 million project had produced nothing more than an expensive failure, while my $15,000 platform had already proven its value to the most discerning judges possible. The 48-hour ultimatum from Theodore Blackstone created a state of emergency at Pinnacle Tech that forced Bradley Hartwell to confront the devastating reality of his son's failures. With bankruptcy proceedings looming and 230 jobs hanging in the balance, Bradley could no longer ignore the evidence that Derek's expensive AI project was fundamentally worthless. Multiple employees approached Bradley, independently recommending my productivity platform as Pinnacle Tech's only viable option for satisfying investor demands. Carol Williams presented a detailed technical analysis comparing Derek's chatbot capabilities with my software's demonstrated performance. The contrast was so stark that even Bradley's paternal bias couldn't obscure the obvious conclusion. Sarah Chen and Marcus Johnson provided testimonials about my software's impact on their daily work efficiency, describing specific improvements they'd experienced during preliminary testing phases. Amy Rodriguez created visual presentations showing how my platform integrated seamlessly with existing business applications, while Derek's chatbot remained isolated and impractical. Faced with imminent financial collapse and investor withdrawal, Bradley personally requested a comprehensive demonstration of my productivity platform. This meeting represented the moment of truth I'd been working toward for months, the opportunity to prove that authentic innovation could emerge from dedication and genuine understanding rather than expensive resources and family connections. Derek made desperate final attempts at interference, claiming that my software violated company intellectual property policies and suggesting that I'd stolen proprietary concepts from his AI project. However, my detailed documentation of the independent development timeline, personal receipts for all development expenses, and time-stamped version control records proved my ownership beyond any reasonable doubt. During my presentation to Bradley and the remaining investors, my productivity platform demonstrated every capability that Derek had promised but failed to deliver. Real-time data analysis, predictive workflow optimization, intelligent resource allocation, and seamless integration with existing business systems prove that my $15,000 investment had produced results that Derek's $30 million project never achieved. The technical sophistication was undeniable, but more importantly, my software solved practical business problems that clients actually experienced. Unlike Derek's chatbot that focused on impressive conversational abilities with limited practical value, my platform addressed specific operational challenges that could immediately improve company performance and client satisfaction. Helena Morrison's endorsement proved decisive when she joined the emergency meeting via video conference to explain Galactic Enterprises' experience with my productivity platform. She described the measurable improvements in efficiency, employee satisfaction, and operational costs that had resulted from preliminary implementation of my software across their telecommunications infrastructure. Helena announced that Galactic Enterprises wanted to sign an exclusive partnership agreement worth $8 million annually to license my productivity platform for nationwide deployment. Additionally, she'd recommended my software to 3 other major corporations who were preparing similar licensing agreements worth millions of dollars each. Theodore Blackstone's assessment was immediate and definitive. My productivity platform represented exactly the type of practical innovation that justified substantial investment, while Derek's chatbot project exemplified the expensive technological failures that smart investors avoided. Blackstone offered to increase his investment in Pinnacle Tech, specifically to support my software development and marketing efforts. Derek faced the inevitable consequences of years of deception and intellectual property theft when Bradley discovered the full extent of his misconduct. Employee testimonies revealed the systematic pattern of stolen credit-manipulated presentations and fraudulent claims about technical capabilities that had characterized Derek's entire tenure as innovation director. The board of directors voted unanimously to terminate Derek's employment and pursue legal action for fraud, embezzlement, and violation of fiduciary duties. Bradley, humiliated by his son's behavior and the damage caused to company morale, publicly apologized to affected employees and committed to implementing new policies preventing future abuse of authority. My promotion to Chief Technology Officer included equity ownership, substantial salary increase, and complete authority over software development projects company-wide. The $15,000 investment that Derek had mocked as insignificant became the foundation for Pinnacle Tech's most successful product launch in company history. Theodore Blackstone restructured his investment to support my productivity platform's development and marketing, providing resources for expanding the software's capabilities and reaching new client markets. The partnership created sustainable revenue streams that secured Pinnacle Tech's financial future while validating the practical value of authentic innovation over expensive pretense. 6 months later, Derek's $30 million failure had become a cautionary tale about the dangers of nepotism and unearned privilege, while my productivity platform generated over $20 million in annual licensing revenue. Companies across multiple industries adopted my software because it solved real problems efficiently rather than pursuing impressive technology for its own sake. I established mentorship programs for junior employees, ensuring that future innovations would receive proper recognition and support, regardless of their creators' positions in the corporate hierarchy. Sarah Chen received promotion to senior marketing analyst, with credit for her customer retention strategies. Marcus Johnson became lead developer with recognition for his quality assurance innovations. Standing before our entire company during the annual meeting, I addressed the lessons learned from this transformative period. True leadership emerges from competence and integrity rather than inherited position or family connections. Innovation thrives when organizations value substance over status and recognize talent regardless of its source. Success requires earning respect through measurable results, rather than demanding it through authority or manipulation. The most valuable technological solutions emerge from understanding real problems and developing practical answers, not from pursuing expensive projects that sound impressive, but deliver minimal value. My journey from dismissed assistant to chief technology officer proved that authentic achievement comes from dedication, creativity, and genuine expertise, rather than privilege or financial resources. Derek's spectacular failure demonstrated that competence cannot be inherited, purchased, or faked indefinitely when subjected to real-world performance standards. As I concluded my presentation, I looked out at colleagues who had supported my innovation despite Derek's attempts at sabotage. Their recognition and respect meant more than any corporate title or financial success because it represented validation from people who understood the difference between authentic accomplishment and inherited advantage. The productivity platform that began as a rejected $15,000 proposal had transformed Pinnacle Tech's future, while proving that innovation flourishes when organizations embrace merit over privilege and substance over appearance. Have you ever witnessed someone in authority taking credit for work they didn't create? And how did you handle that situation? I'd love to hear about your experiences with workplace injustice in the comments below. If this story resonated with your own professional challenges, please like this video and subscribe for more stories about overcoming adversity through determination and authentic achievement. Share this with anyone who needs inspiration to pursue their innovative ideas, despite facing skepticism from those in power. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that your most valuable contributions often emerge when you refuse to let others diminish your potential.